folks from startups in the room, people writing software, etc. I thought we ought to do just one more thing. It's kind of a lesson actually of startups. What is the most important thing to do other than to have a vision, pursue it with tenacity, know where your customers are going to derive value, remake yourself? It's to sell. You got to sell something. So I have to sell something this presentation. Since you're all developers, I thought I would just highlight some of the great opportunities to write your software, to build and extend Microsoft's platform, to build for the Windows Phone, to build for Windows tablets and PCs, to use our Azure infrastructure to bootstrap and bring high productivity, high reliability cloud services to the market. You won't be alone. We have in our stores today over 200,000 applications, but some of the big ones have been missing. Facebook just launched, Instagram, Vine, Flipboard, RaiTV is launched. We think there will be incredible opportunity for all of you as developers to embrace our platforms, to use Azure on the back end, and to support the kind of rich client environments that Luca just had a chance to show you. So it's a time of unprecedented opportunity for developers and a time of unprecedented opportunity for Microsoft as we attack our new startup. If I could boil it down and leave you with three ideas. The power of your idea matters. Have a clear idea and pursue it. You're going to have passion because the road is not simple. Whether it's the road to sell something, to find value, the time it takes to really build a great idea, and certainly to stay tenacious. I respect and admire all of you who are on this journey of software development and startup. I can assure you'll get the best support and partnership that we can provide you as a company, and we certainly wish you all the luck and all the success in the world. If our team here in Italy can help, let them know. And if they're not somehow able, Steve B at Microsoft.com. I'm always looking forward to hearing from aspiring young entrepreneurs. Thank you very much for your time today.
You already know Carlo Pressato? Yeah, ready? Meet each other, ready? Okay. Numero 1 di Microsoft Italia. Carlo Pressato, un applauso anche per lui. È stata una bella ventata di innovazione, energia, credibilità, Microsoft Italia, Carlo. Allora, non si finisce mai di imparare a stare sul palco. Noi tutti timidini andiamo, avete sentito che voce? Che presenza? No? Adesso devo fare un po' più robusto quando sono sul palco. Allora, questa conferenza alternativa.
The theater. I've never actually stood in a real-life theater like this and given a speech. And I suspect there are some people up there, but I can't see you. So I'm going to focus very much on the group right here. It is a real honor and privilege for me to have a chance to be here with you today. Amongst my most favorite things to do is to talk to students and to talk to people who are starting businesses. And in a sense, the energy, the rush, the enthusiasm that you get from folks who are in those phases of life is really, really incredible. In fact, it often, of course, makes me think about the old days, so to speak, at Microsoft. And I've been around essentially since the start of Microsoft. I did not start Microsoft. I lived down the hall from Bill Gates the year he started Microsoft. And I remember I just met this kind of crazy guy, a mutual friend, thought we'd like each other because we were both a little crazy. And he was all hours of the night leaving to go to the computer lab and write programs. Some of you looked at what's a computer lab. In the old days, you had to go someplace to write software. And essentially what had happened in our startup is Bill Gates and Paul Allen had been excited really since they were about 14 years old about the power of a microprocessor. There was a theory that you could take one of these microprocessors and mix it with the magic of something called software and essentially do almost anything. Now, for people who are younger, you say, well, of course, that's the world in which we live. But about 5 years later, Bill was trying to get me to drop out of school to join him in this small startup, still only 30 people at Microsoft when I joined. And I called my mother and father. I was 23 years old. I called my mother and father, who themselves had never gone to college, and I said, I think I'm going to drop out and go join my friend Bill's startup. Drop out was not a good word. Drop out. Drop out. My father said, that's a very bad idea. People who are successful don't drop out. And they said, well, what does your friend Bill, whoever that is, they never met old Bill, what does your friend Bill's startup do? And I said, well, I can't tell you everything about it, but they do software for personal computers. And my father, who was not, he didn't go to college, but he was a smart guy. What's software? Said my father. And then my mother said, no, Freddie, I've got an even more important question. Why would a person ever need a computer? That was the vision, if you will, behind the startup that I joined. We were 30 people at the time at Microsoft. We had done about $2.5 million in revenue. Just as a reminder, we're almost $80 billion in revenue now, and we have 100,000 people. And if there's a lesson to be learned, it's if you have the right idea, you're at least 50 or 60% of the way to a successful startup. You need the right idea, you need the right timing, you need the right luck, you need the right hard work and energy. You need a lot of things to go right for you, in fact. But a powerful idea almost can't be stopped. And not every idea is going to be as powerful as let's be the first people to do software for microprocessors. Paul Allen actually said to Bill Gates, hey, isn't this great? We'll write all the software anybody will ever use on these machines. Obviously, that was a little bit overstated. But the power of the concept is very, very important. I dropped out, as I told you. I'd been at Microsoft about 2 months, and two things were happening. Number one, I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing because the company wasn't very well organized. And number two, I thought the company needed more people. And so Bill Gates and I started fighting a little bit. We're a little like brothers. We find ways to argue. And I said, we need to add 10 people. He said, we'll go bankrupt if we add 10 people. Eventually he said yes, but I started to have reservations. Maybe I should drop back into school. This was just at the end of the summer break. I could have gone right back to school. I said, Bill, I'm going back to school. I need to tell you that. He grabbed his father, who was that tall, and me, and we went out to dinner, and he said to me, Steve, you don't get it. You really don't get it. I said, what don't I get, Bill? He said, we're going to put a computer on every desk and in every home. He invented that kind of as a mantra for us, as a way to capture the vision Because at the time I was thinking there just wasn't anything big enough and exciting enough about Microsoft. So having the ability in a startup or with a new idea, not just to see a product, but to see a whole path to change some walk of life, I think is very, very important. In fact, I think that's one of the exciting things about being in the technology business, is we still get the opportunity at Microsoft or folks doing startups to think about dramatically transforming the way people work and the way people live. So the first grand vision for Microsoft was all around microprocessor software. The power of software with microprocessors. As we were running hard and Paul Allen wanted us to do all of the world's software, a second compelling technology was being invented that we decided we were going to embrace because it would fundamentally change our company and our startup. And that was the power of graphical user interface. It's hard for people to remember, but there was a day when all you could put on a computer screen was simple letters. A, B, C, D, star. The first computer games I ever wrote were miniature golf games where you had to guess how many asterisks between your ball and the asterisk that represented the hole. That was computer gaming in about 1979, 80, 81. So along came graphical user interface. And it didn't change the fundamental vision of the company. What it did was introduce a new technology that could supercharge the vision that Bill and Paul had had. And really, it was on the power of graphical user interface that cheap, affordable, easy-to-use computers came into common usage. That didn't happen until about 1995, late 90s, really. So as you sit there, looking at your startup, thinking about what you want to do, you're going to have to remember two more lessons. You need a big idea. You may have to stay with it a long time. And you better keep it current with the most modern technologies that are coming to market. Some of you will say, 15 years, Steve, come on, don't you understand? We work in internet time out here. And the truth is, things do move faster. The world does move faster than at the time we were doing our startup. But even with that said, most of the great companies do take a while to really build their momentum, to really get their formulas figured out. There are very few companies that go from nothing to something in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. With the rapid success of Twitter or Facebook, you could make certain assumptions. But you take a look at Amazon, probably 10 years before it really took off. Microsoft, 10 or 15 years before it really took off. Even Google, 8, 9 years before it really took off. So a powerful idea, kept current and refreshed and pursued with great tenacity. It's not much written, but I actually was involved in a second startup at Microsoft. And that's the whole notion of Microsoft as an enterprise company. Today, most people say, oh yeah, that's what Microsoft is. They sell to IT people, enterprise, blah, 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 blah. But in the late 1980s, we didn't sell anything to the enterprise. In fact, we had a bunch of people say, you're just a small little company. Nobody in a business would ever really want to buy your stuff. And yet the power of the idea of taking this microprocessor and not just putting it in personal computers, but putting it in the back end, in the data center, in corporate computers, was also quite powerful. Today, if you looked at our revenue and our profit, something like 2/3 to 3/4 would come on the power of the microprocessor data center. Now, why do I mention it? Because again, as you're driving forward, keeping your mind open looking for other new applications of the fundamental vision, the fundamental technology, the fundamental power of your ideas, I think is very, very important. Knowing when to do that's also important. There's an expression that I'm sure I won't get right that came from Hewlett and Packard in the old days. They say more companies die of indigestion than overeating. I think the concept is more companies and startups die because people try to do too broad a set of things as opposed to really doing a focused set of things very well. I'll tell you a little bit, we're in the middle now, and I've been at Microsoft 33 years, Microsoft's about 38 years old, and now we're finding ourselves having to start up again. It's kind of the ultimate lesson in the technology business, which is, frankly, in our industry, unless you're constantly inventing something new, your idea is getting old and tired. This stage, and the answer is yes. But we're a company that was born a software company. But today we're having to remake ourselves for a world in which all software either gets delivered as a internet or as a set of embedded capabilities in phones and tablets and PCs and other devices. So this notion of starting up and recreating yourself and continuous invention is a continual part of what we do. Along the way, we learned one other, I think, valuable lesson that I'll stress. It's funny, there's just enough angle there to trip you. I'll bet when they get stage actors there, they're more adept than I am. The one other thing that we've learned about business startups is you do have to, in a sense, focus in on something that's important to somebody. We call that the high-value activities which define us. And what's high value to people is quite varied. I have a 14-year-old son. If you ask what's high value to him, he'll say almost anything that involves video games. I don't view those as high value for him. High value for Microsoft, but not high value for my little boy. On the other hand, serious fun is something that people will really engage in, pay for, play to. What we found along the way was we had a key ability to focus in on making people more productive. Productivity is a core part of our value. Serious fun became a core part of our value. Focusing in on the productivity of IT people and software developers became a core part of our value. So I'd say to all of you, you need to start with a sort of a big idea, keep it technologically fresh, stay after it, know into something new, but at all times, you have to be able to say, what am I doing in my startup, in my software, in my application, that some group of people is going to find of high value? Because value is where the businesses get created. Many startups get off the road with some kind of an idea. The startups that really stay on the road recognize that they need to find customers who have extreme value in the work that they do. Today, if you were to look at the Microsoft product line, it's quite different than the product line when we were started. We had products called Basic, Fortran, COBOL. We actually had our first hardware product when I joined. It was called the Soft Card. It was essentially an Intel computer you could plug into an Apple computer. It was kind of like the old world equivalent of Parallels on the Mac today or something. But even back then, there were concepts. Today, we're defining next generations of PCs through Windows, tablets through Surface, phones through the work that we're doing that we actually hope to acquire with Nokia. We're trying to provide services that are of high value to people in their personal lives, Bing, Skype, Office for homework, and at the same time, continue to focus in on the tools of productivity and communications and IT management that are very, very valuable in the enterprise. Everything's being remade into a device or a service. That is the future. I got some good news actually when I landed here in Italy. I noticed that our Windows Phone share, first country in the world where Windows Phone surpassed the iPhone. I don't know how long it'll last. We're going to hopefully go north from there. And I thank every Italian citizen for that. In a way, you can say even Windows Phone is a startup. Well-financed startup, but a startup. And we appreciate each of our emerging customers. We're going to do a little bit of a demonstration of some of our stuff and how it comes together. You're going to have a chance to hear from other startups later who are going to pitch some of their ideas, but because it's our event and we still think a little like a startup and love our stuff, we wanted to show you some of the most recent Microsoft products working together in full harmony to make people more productive and more valuable. So please welcome Luca from our Italian subsidiary on stage. Luca will demonstrate for you now. Luca.
Wow, andare a studiare con Steve è abbastanza complesso.